Why, hello there, and welcome to my sweet dream sanctuary. This is JoPaddy, and I'm your narrator this evening of a story of Io. The author is James Baldwin. Long ago and far away, a lovely girl named Io was pursued by the god Jupiter. This is the tale of her journey to freedom, where she became the mother of a race of heroes. Now, get cozy under your covers and let's enjoy a nice sleep story. In the town of Argos, there lived a maiden named Io. She was so fair and good that all who knew her loved her and said that there was no one like her in the whole wide world. When Jupiter, in his home in the clouds, heard of her, he came down to Argos to see her. She pleased him so much and was so kind and wise that he came back the next day, and the next, and the next. And by, he stayed in Argos all the time, so that he might be near her. She did not know who he was, but thought that he was a prince from some faraway land. For he came in the guise of a young man, and did not look like the great king of earth and sky that he was. But Juno, the queen who lived with Jupiter and shared his throne amidst of the clouds, did not love Io at all. When she heard why Jupiter stayed away from home so long, she made up her mind, and one day she went down to Argos to try what could be done. Jupiter saw her while she was still a great way off, and he knew why she had come. So to save Io from her, he changed the maiden into a white cow. He thought that when Juno had gone back home, it would not be hard to put her in her old form again. But when the queen saw the cow, she knew that it was Io. "Oh, what a fine cow you have there," she said. "Give her to me, good Jupiter. Give her to me." Jupiter did not like to do this, but she coaxed so hard that at last he gave up and let her have the cow for her own. He thought that it would not be long till he could get her away from the queen and change her into a girl once more. But Juno was too wise to trust him. She took the cow by her horns and led her out of the town. "Now, my sweet maid," she said, "I will see that you stay in this shape as long as you live." Then she gave the cow in charge of a strange watchman named Argus, who had not 2 eyes only, as you and I have, but 10 times 10. And Argus led the cow to a grove and tied her by a long rope to a tree, where she had to stand and eat grass from morning till night, and then when the sun had set and it was dark, she lay down in the cold ground and fell asleep. And no kind friend heard her, and no one came to help her, for none but Jupiter and Juno knew that the white cow who stood in the grove was Io, who all the world loved. Day in and day out, Argus, who was all eyes, sat on a hill close by and watched. And you could not say that he went to sleep at all, for while half of his eyes were shut, the other half were wide awake, and thus they slept and watched at the same time. Jupiter was grieved when he saw what a hard life Io had been doomed, and he tried to think of some plan to set her free. One day he called sly Mercury, who had wings on his shoes, and bade him go to lead the cow away from the grove where she was kept. Mercury went down and stood near the foot of the hill where Argus sat, and began to play sweet tunes on his flute. This was just what the strange watchman liked to hear, and so he called to Mercury and asked him to come up and sit by his side and play some other tunes. Mercury did as he wished, and played such strings of sweet music as no one in all the world has heard from that day to this. And as he played, strange old Argus lay down upon the grass and listened, and thought that he had not had so great a treat in all his life. But by and by, the sweet sounds wrapped him in so strange a spell that all his eyes closed at once, and he fell into a deep sleep. This is just what Mercury wished. Then he ran down the hill to loosen the cow and lead her to the town. But Juno had seen him and met him on the road. She cried out to him and told him to let the cow go. As soon as he saw her, he turned and fled, and left poor Io standing there by herself. Juno was so much grieved when she saw Argus stretched in the grass on a hilltop that she took his 100 eyes and set them in the tail of a peacock, and there you may still see them to this day. Then she found a great gadfly, as big as a bat, and sent it to buzz in the white cow's ears. Poor Io ran from place to place to get out of its way, but it buzzed and buzzed and buzzed. Day after day she ran, now through the thick woods, now in the long grass that grew, and now by the shore of the sea. By and by she came to a narrow neck of the sea, and since the land on the other side looked as though she might find rest there, she leaped into the waves and swam across. And that place has been called Bosphorus, a word which means Sea of the Cow, from that time till now. And you will find it so marked on the map in which you use at school. Then she went on through a strange land on the other side, and let her do what she would, she could not get rid of the gadfly. After a time, she came to a place there were high mountains with snow-capped peaks which seemed to touch the sky. There she stopped to rest a while, and she looked up at the calm, cold cliffs above her, where all was so grand and still. But as she looked, she saw a giant form stretched upon the rocks, midway between earth and sky, and she knew at once that it was Prometheus, the young Titan whom Jupiter had chained there because he had given fire to men. My sufferings are not so great as his, she thought. Then Prometheus looked down and spoke to her. His voice was very mild and kind. I know who you are, he said. And then he told her not to lose hope, but to go south and then west, and she would by and by find a place in which to rest. She would have thanked him if she could, but when she tried to speak, she could only say, moo, moo. Then Prometheus went on and told her that the time would come when she would be given her old form again, and that she would live to be the mother of a race of heroes. As for me, he said, I bide the time in patience, for I know that one of those heroes will break my chains and set me free. Farewell. Then Io, with a brave heart, left the great Titan and journeyed as he had told her, first south and then west. The gadfly was worse now than ever, but she did not fear it half so much, for her heart was full of hope. For a whole year she wandered, and at last She came into the land of Egypt and Africa. She felt so tired now that she could go no farther, and so she lay down near the bank of the great river Nile to rest. All this time, Jupiter might have helped her if he hadn't been so afraid of Juno. But now it so chanced that when the poor cow lay down by the bank in the Nile, Queen Juno, in her high house in the clouds, also lay down to take a nap. As soon as she was sound asleep, Jupiter, like a flash of light, sped over the sea to Egypt. He chased away the cruel gadfly and threw it into the river. Then he stroked the cow's head with his hand, and the cow was seen no more. But in her place stood a young girl, Io, pale and frail, but fair and good as she had been in her old home in the town of Argos. Jupiter said not a word, nor even showed himself to the tired, trembling maiden. He hurried back with all speed to his high home in the clouds, for he feared that Juno might waken and find out what he had done. The people of Egypt were kind to Io and gave her a home in their sunny land, and by the king of Egypt asked her to be his wife and made her his queen, and she lived a long and happy life in his marble palace on the bank of the Nile. Ages afterwards, the great-grandson of the great-grandson of Eo's great-grandson broke the chains of Prometheus and set that mighty friend of mankind free. The name of the hero was Hercules. Good night and sweet dreams.